the young lady was very persistent also. She, the mother and I were having some issues, as far as communication, as far as, relationships, his status was concerned.
Yeah, can I stop you for a second, Mr.
Yes,
Mitchell?
ma'am.
And I'm gonna revert back to my colleague. You were talking about a 13-year-old and you were what, 37?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So Ms. Chance is bringing to your attention, I think, what all three of us are thinking, that a 13-year-old cannot be very persistent when it comes to having a relationship with somebody in their 30s, late 30s.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a Connecticut man who was sentenced to just 8.5 years for doing this to a child for multiple years, starting at the age of 13. What is incredibly disturbing about this case, like many others, is that he's actually given a low risk score. And we might go over how that risk score works. It's a nationwide algorithm, a 10-point questionnaire that for us sheeple, we understand that it's insane, but I don't know. I guess the legal system put in charge of protecting us don't. Another thing that I'm going to unpack in this case is how the family did not want to sign the plea deal, which the prosecutor and judge agreed to against their wishes. Another injustice of the system. But let's watch this just remarkable parole hearing, this low risk offender, and I'll unpack it with those details at the end.
Okay. All right, your call. No
Sorry
worries.
for the confusion.
That doesn't matter. This is fine with me. This I'll get Mitchell
All
down.
right, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Right. That's the tough one for today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hold on one second, sir. We'll be right with you.
Sure.
Dennis Mitchell, inmate number 435,598. He is serving a sentence of 18 years jail, suspended after 8 years, 6 months, followed by 10 years of probation for 2 counts of sexual assault, 2 victim over 13 but under 16, and 2 counts of illegal sexual contact with a victim under 16. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of December 18, 2024. There was no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the following programs. Short-term sex treatment program. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. Utilizing the static 99R, the offender's overall score for sexual offense for recidivism falls within the low range. Mr. Mitchell, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Again, good morning, members of the Board of Parole. First and foremost, I just want you to know that I'm not a problem person. I'm not a troublemaker. It's the first time I've ever been incarcerated, jail, in trouble. I fully accept that what I did was wrong. No, it was not a wise decision. And in that respect, I believe that I should be granted parole because first I have a child in DCF custody and needs me as a role model in their life. Because the mother did not show concern to keep them safe. I do not want to lose my child in my life. I also want you to know I'm a good person and no danger to the community. This is my first time in jail, and I will do what it takes to stay out of jail and out of trouble and finish my stuff that I need to keep my child in my custody and in my life. I've made a very bad mistake and decision that put me in jail. I will not be back in jail for any reason of any kind. I will not back in jail. I want to watch her grow up. Again, like I said, I'm not a troublemaker. And I believe I can benefit the society and communities by doing what's right, and I've also put it in God's hands that I'm granted parole to get out and take care of my child and do what needs to be done and be in the community with my heart and soul.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell, so we thank you for your opening comments. And we have questions for you. The three of us are going to take turns to ask you questions. And then when we're done, we're going to deliberate on the record and let you know what our answer is. And so I'm going to ask Smith or Mary to go for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mitchell.
Good morning.
I appreciate your opening statement. Sounds like you put a little bit of effort into preparing that. I
Yes,
heard
ma'am.
what you had to say, that you're hopeful to get parole so that you can take custody of your daughter
Yes, ma'am.
and get back out in the community. I agree that in the Department of Corrections, you don't appear to have been a troublemaker.
No,
I
ma'am.
do. I'm looking at your offenses, though, and I have to share with you that your charges that you're here for today are of an incredibly serious nature. Aside from a loss of life, this is probably right at the top of having victims that will suffer their whole life. With that said, I did not hear much mention of the victim in this case or any remorse, much remorse.
I am sorry. I'm not, I'm nervous and I'm scared.
Mhm.
I had other stuff in there, but I chose to, I just didn't say it.
What are you scared of?
Just scared in general of what, I've got what, 4.5 left or 4 left. I'm worried of what's gonna happen to my child. And I didn't say that part, that I was hardly sorry for what repercussions I've caused in the situation and what got me in here. But I will, I put it in God's hands, and that's, it's up to you guys to decide. But I'll do whatever it takes, whatever on the outside, see a therapist, whatever the case may be. And as far as being with the victim, I'm hardly sorry for what happened. I take responsibility for it. It was a wrong mistake, a stupid decision to even begin to think about that. And I hope that she can move on with her life, and the mother and her family can forgive me for what took place.
So I have a few questions based on what you just said. So when you say, I take responsibility, it was a mistake, it was a stupid decision. So very often, a mistake is something that occurs 1 or 2 times, right? You shoplift, that's a mistake. It happens, you get in an argument with somebody, that's a mistake. Your offenses took place over a few years. They happened multiple times a week. You offended this person, the victim. Do you still think it's a mistake? And I'm going to just say, so you've been evaluated by special services for treatment in the community, and you participated in the short-term sex offender treatment program in the facility. So I guess we're expecting maybe a little bit more insight from you.
I don't know exactly what to say. Other than, like I said, I take accountability for my actions. Not to defer from that, but the young lady was very persistent also. She, the mother and I were having some issues, as far as communication, as far as, relationships, his status was concerned.
Yeah, can I stop you for a second, Mr.
Yes,
Mitchell?
ma'am.
And I'm gonna revert back to my colleague. You were talking about a 13-year-old and you were what, 37?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So Ms. Chance is bringing to your attention, I think, what all three of us are thinking, that a 13-year-old cannot be very persistent when it comes to having a sexual relationship with somebody in their 30s, late 30s. And I'm going to go back to what I said to you a few minutes ago, is that having participated in the treatment program, part of the goal and of that program is for you to appreciate, that what your role in all that is, and not be blaming the victim, because you've done that sort of right along. You've blamed the victim right from the beginning, and nothing much has changed. And I'm sure having a young daughter, you can see why you cannot blame a 13-year-old for this offense. And that's what you just did, which kind of undoes all the treatment that you had.
I'm sorry for what happened. I can't take it back. It's already happened. I can promise you and guarantee you that it will not happen again. Like I said, I'm not a troublemaker. I'm not a person that goes looking for trouble. I'm not a person that goes out there and says, I'm gonna do this today. I'm gonna do that today. I'm gonna do this to this person. This has been my first time in jail. I know it's a very serious offense. I know it's.
What do you
It's
think
not-
makes it so? What do you think makes it so serious, Mr. Mitchell?
The fact that there were relations with someone who is underage, number one, number two, that was someone else's child. So that's first and foremost my child. Someone that, from whatever the situation that she's in DCF custody, I don't understand how the mother let that happen either.
How the mother let the relationship between you and her daughter?
No. In my daughter's situation,
Okay.
how the
Okay.
mother didn't protect them or protect her. I understand that as an adult, as a person of age, older than the age of 21, should have known better, should have never ever considered or thought about it. Like I said, I fully take accountability for my actions. I'm hardly sorry for what the things that happened. Like I said, I'm nervous. I don't know what to say. I am very sorry for the things that have happened and accumulated and got me here. It will never happen again. And whatever the case may be, when I get on the outside to see a therapist, to see, whoever it is, to do what it is.
I hear what you're saying. And you have said all along it should not have happened. I guess the sort of our issue, sort of the concern when you say it won't happen again is that there doesn't seem to be a full and complete understanding of the fact that the victim cannot be responsible in any way, any shape or form for for the offense. It's all- it's impossible.
Correct.
Based on maturity, age, and the fact that you were the potential custodian in that house, or one of them. So when you say it will never happen again, those are some of the reasons that are concerning to us when you say it won't happen again, because you don't appear to have resolved that. You did the short-term sex offender treatment program, and you were able to identify some risk factors, some cognitive distortions. What does that mean for you in relation to your charges? How did you distort what was in your mind? How did you feel you were justifying it?
I didn't feel justified, and I don't feel justified. What I did was wrong. What I did was not something that a person of that authority or that respect in a family situation or in a I don't know how you call that, parental figure should be doing. I don't know, when I heard what happened to my child with the swoon in her mouth or whatever, I don't know if you know the situation with that. I was beyond livid and thought about my situation and what happened, and just swore that whatever I will never let that situation come again. Number one, I need to be out there for my child because she was not taken care of, or properly taken care of, I should say, I guess. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, which makes it look bad for me for the fact the situation that happened. But like I keep telling myself, I was responsible for that, and it should have never happened, because I'm an adult and I should know better. I should know better than that. And to get into that situation, to be more of a father role, so to speak, in the victim. And like I said before, I take full accountability of what I did. And I don't know, I have a daughter out there who loves me to death. She's gonna need to know what I've done, but in due time, I'll tell her that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mitchell,
Yes,
I think we all appreciate, and sincerely, we understand that the predicament you find yourself in, being incarcerated and your daughter needing you to be back with her in the community. We do not have any information about that, just what you have told the parole officer, and we don't want to go into that at this hearing today, for her privacy and for yours. But I guess what concerns us primarily today is whether or not you're suitable to release to the community. And I appreciate that in terms of risk, you assess low. What concerns me again, and I keep using that word concerns because you have to think about public safety, is that your risk factors are criminal attitudes and criminal behaviors. And when we review your interview with the parole officer and the evaluations and your summary, I'm not certain that those risk factors have been addressed satisfactorily to give us enough information to find you suitable for parole today. What was the most significant thing you got from the short-term sex offender treatment program? What do you think sticks with you the most?
the fact that a person with the authority that I had and over a child should never even be considering or thinking about that, or even should be playing a parent role, should be keep them from harm, which is not what I did. To keep them safe, to keep them on the right path for them to grow up and be a successful adult. Like I, for my child, I want her to grow up and be what she wants to be and be, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is she wants to be. But she's got issues right now with what's going on with her.
Okay, I know, but right now we're focused on you. Because even if you get back in the community, that's still something that has to be worked out. So the focus is on you today. Can you tell me what you think the long-term effects of the sexual assault on the victim are?
She's going to think about it a long time. She's going to be very hurt. She's going to be questioning anybody that is in that authority figure, whether she's going to be abused, she's going to be, ever like put in that situation again. Her mentality is probably going to be questioned. She's going to suffer.
Do you feel like the treatment program was beneficial at all?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I believe it was beneficial because I see the wrong in what I did. I see that in that authority figure, I should have never ever considered or thought about any of that. That being in that parental role, what I did was totally and utterly wrong.
Over the course of several years, during that time frame, did you ever step back and ask yourself what was wrong about this situation and what you could do to change it?
Once, yes. Once, yes.
Now, you still have a number of programs on your OAP. One is Voices, which talks
Nobody
about.
ever told me.
Okay.
They only said the sex treatment.
Yeah,
And
well, that's.
I've asked them. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I'm just saying the sex offender treatment program is probably at the top of the priority list in terms of programs. That's the program they generally want you to try and complete before you come before the board, right? Other programs like the Voices program, for example, that provides you with a little bit more insight, gives you something to think about in terms of the impact on the victims in the community and your victims, and as it affects the community as a whole. So that is an important program also to be considered. And then, there was a hope that you might be able to work a little bit on your education or maybe find a job in the facility. Have you worked at all since you've been there?
Since I've been incarcerated down to 4 years, I gave 2 years in the kitchen in BCC in Bridgeport County.
Okay.
And I applied when I got to McDougal for a job, and I applied for it here when I got here.
And you were not working while you were in the community, is that correct?
I was working until COVID hit. And then they started stopping people from going to the restaurants and stuff like that.
Well, your offense started long before COVID, right?
Yes, I was working. I had jobs.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mitchell, thank you for answering my questions. I have nothing to add, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Mitchell, I often look at these things and I try to figure out why. And sometimes there's substance use involved, but that's not the case there. What made it okay? And just add to that, Board Member Smith Palmieri just said, it happened over many years. Have you ever thought about what you were doing with a clear head, which you had? You thought about it once? So trying to figure out, 56 years old, what made it okay to do?
Nothing made it okay to do.
So then,
It was wrong, it was wrong. I didn't think about, I guess, the consequence of my reactions, about my actions, sorry. The mother and I were going through a bunch of stuff, some things, in our relationship, and we were,
but you didn't think about leaving that relationship and going to get another adult relationship? You thought about having sex with a kid?
I thought we could work it out, but I guess now that I look back at it, I should have left. And to have sex with a child was not my first intention. I was trying to work out the relationship with the mother. And again, like I said, I'm heartfully sorry for what I did. Not to excuse the situation, not to excuse what I've done. But I should have just left the whole situation and I let emotions get the better of me. And it's not an excuse. I don't know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any further.
Well, Mr. Mitchell,
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear you accept responsibility for what you did. You say different things like you're trying to work out a relationship with the mother while you're having a sexual relationship with her young daughter. Then you were blaming the victim. You completed the short-term sex offender program and said you learned to make better choices that would not get you into situations that put you in incarceration. You were then asked what would be a high risk for you in the community, and you said everything is a high risk. So you have no support in the community, and you are not working. But when I read, it said from the period of 2018 to 2020, you had employment at 11 restaurants. So you kept going from place to place, and I don't understand why. But you said you were donating your time to local charity. What charity?
There was a place in New Haven area down there that was getting food in. It was a house, and they were feeding the community. So they were cooking breakfast and allowing them to come to the yard, feeding them breakfast, doing sandwiches, stuff like that. So I was cooking inside for them, helping them do their house and whatever, go through the tent city that they had and helping them do what we needed to do for that, for people who were homeless, stuff like that. Taking in clothes and helping them sort them out so they can give them to the people in the community. Just basically helping their whatever they were doing. I guess they're basically an organized community, nonprofit, I'm assuming. And they were serving lunch, breakfast and lunch, and they were doing, like giving out clothes and stuff like that. I was giving them time. I was there every day.
So, Mr. Mitchell, my concern here is, and if I said 37, you were what, 49 years old or 48 years old? And the victim was 13, and it went on for a couple of years and you only thought of it once. I don't think you have a good feel for exactly the impact to the victim. And I think you need to take some more programs and maybe revisit some of the things that you said you learned in the short-term sex offender program. Okay? And I think your concerns for your daughter is admirable, but I'm also concerned about her living with you. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't really have any questions, so we're going to deliberate now, and you cannot say anything. Okay? Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Ms. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to Mr. Mitchell, I think we all seem like we're on the same page. I told Mr. Mitchell it's very concerning that he completed the program, yet came in and proceeded to say how it was the victim's fault. The victim was pursuing him. It's an offense that took place over many years. As you said, he gave it one time. He thought about it being wrong. Mr. Mitchell has done the program we wanted him to take, but it doesn't appear that he's gained anything from his participation in it. I do feel I hear his concern about his daughter, but in terms of suitability to be in the community and public safety, I appreciate that he scores low. However, at this point, I don't think that Mr. Mitchell has proven himself, or at least through today's interview, to be suitable to be in the community.
Mr. P.
I agree with, Board Member Smith-Palmieri.
I mean, he didn't even talk about, Mr. Mitchell didn't even mention the victim until I brought it up. I appreciate that he's a little preoccupied with his daughter, but
I don't know if the case is that, it's the long-term program in Voices and see you in a while. With hopes that maybe programming can help or not. But, very definitely, if we have to coax out what's wrong, obviously what you just said about programming is,
it's unfortunate.
it's right in the right place. It's a good assessment. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think I said to Mr. Mitchell that I don't think he benefited much from the short-term sex offender program. He needs to take additional programs and go back and revisit either the short-term or the long-term, whichever is appropriate. But for me, I haven't denied, and I do not have him coming back.
I don't have to cover back either.
Okay.
So my reasons are nature and circumstances, inadequate institution program participation, and evidence of offender change. In the case of Dennis Mitchell, inmate number 435598, there is a motion to deny request for discretionary parole due to the nature and circumstances of the current offense, inadequate institution program participation, and no evidence of offender change. Do I have a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Mr. Mitchell, we need you to take more programs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good luck.
This concludes the
Thank you.
hearing.
All set?
Yep, you're all set.
This
Thank you.
concludes the hearing for Dennis Mitchell, inmate number 43559.
Okay, we're going to go over his crime. Then we'll go over that 10-point nationwide questionnaire, the magic algorithm that the PhDs all collaborated on to give men like him low risk scores. Because, I mean, so clearly the guy is a low risk of doing anything like this again. Before I do, let me just get some stuff off my chest because sometimes cases they just speak for themselves, and I don't need to like scream, I guess, like the way that I sometimes do. And I see in the comments some of you are annoyed by it. I don't blame you. There are plenty of YouTubers that I think make great content, and I think they're a bit whiny, and I get it. But I know that there are many of you that feel like I am kind of being your voice, and we're all, or a lot of us, are feeling this way. And although we're just considered sheeple and we don't know any better, what's part of what's frustrating about the process about watching these is just how clearly insane the system is. You know, thank God the parole board denied, because we have seen in Connecticut, particularly in Iowa, where someone will have a hearing of this insanity and still get granted. This was someone who, to this day, does not even have the ability to pretend, to fake it. Well, I mean, what did we even hear? He's at his parole hearing. He blames the 13-year-old victim. He blames his wife or his ex-wife for his child's situation, which he continued to bring up as if it was somehow relevant in any way, shape, or form to this parole hearing. It's just totally like mind-blowing. Not to mention that hopefully you can't trust the system, but hopefully, and he won't even have access to his child. So the whole thing is just like, you know that he only needs to register for 10 years, by the way. If you can, again, another great part of the system. When he gets out, he'll only need to register for 10 years. And his full term date, he's getting out in 2029, which is in less than 5 years. He gets 4 years in a few months. So he's going to be walking the street. Don't worry, according to the algorithm, he's not. He'll never do this again. And what's crazy is that the system doesn't know like the basic nature of predators, right? It's my belief, and maybe yours as well, that he didn't by chance end up in a relationship with the mother with the child of his desired age. No, that is planned. He finds a woman with the child, does what it takes to get with her so that he can have his prey available. These things don't happen by chance. This is thought out. This is planned. This is what he lives and breathes for. I mean, did you even hear what his working record was? Was it some, what I forget the number. Was it 10, 12, 15 restaurants over 2 years? He keeps getting fired. I mean, the guy's just a pathetic. And yet, and it's in this case, I'll go over the records with you. It was the judge that insisted on the plea deal. And the things that the judge says will probably just piss you off more. You know, it wasn't the DA that seemed to have requested this deal. It was actually the judge. And the family said, no, we don't like this deal, which shows you what? The families, if anything, willing to go to trial. But no, the system, they don't care. They don't care. So let's start with this. And thank you, Richard, for pulling up the data on it. So former Bridgeport man gets prison for years long. Can you imagine? Years long. This was written just in February 17, 2023. A former Bridgeport man has been sentenced to serve more than 8 years in prison for sexually assaulting a girl in West Haven for 2 years, beginning when she was 13 years old. The man, 54 years old, Dennis Roy Mitchell, pleaded guilty to 2 counts each of second-degree sexual assault and illegal sexual contact with a minor before the judge Peter Brown in November. During the February 1 sentence hearing at Superior Court in Milford, State's Attorney Margaret Kelly said Mitchell knew the victim and coerced her by claiming he would go to jail if she told anyone about the abuse, which occurred in West Haven and went on for more than 2.5 years. It dated from August 2017, according to the court records, and Mitchell had been behind bars since his arrest in 2020. Now, this was a total betrayal of a very, very vulnerable child, the DA Kelly said, noting that the lasting impact on the victim, it was a terrible burden put on this child, no kidding. There are many ways this crime has impacted me, the victim said in a statement read by the court victim advocate. When this crime was occurring, my grades went down in school since I was experiencing anxiety, depression, and fear for my safety. She says she still suffers from problems including trouble sleeping, social isolation, and trust issues. The victim's parents and sister also submitted statements read in court detailing the effects of the abuse and asking that Mitchell be barred from contact with minors going forward. As part of the plea deal, Mitchell will be on probation for 10 years following his release from prison, during which he must register as an offender and have no contact with any minors. And by the way, this is like a little tweak on their wordings, the verbiage. They want to sneak it in there. 10 years while he's on probation is the only time he must register. On the 11th year, he will all of a sudden be deemed not a risk to be around children. A protective order in the case will prohibit him from contacting with the victim until 2073. Mitchell's lawyer, assistant public defender Kenneth, said the details of this case were terrible, stressing that he was not challenging the feelings of the victim. Oh, this is the DA speaking. He's not challenging the feelings of the victim or her family, the lawyer said. That Mitchell's own, now it's going back to him, me, his own traumatic upbringing played a part in his conduct, though it isn't an excuse for it. Without going into detail, he said, Mitchell suffered some of the worst abuse, neglect, physical, and mental terror that I have seen in my 25 plus years, right? And I'm sure they verified that all that's true. And even if it was true, even if it is true, what are you talking about? Like, what? That's not an excuse. Remember, he sought out his prey. He orchestrated it. This was his life obsession. And then for 2.5 years, and all he gets is 8 years with parole eligibility after serving 50%. It's insane. It's madness. He needs to be locked up for life. He said Mitchell has done nothing but express remorse since his arrest. And no, he hasn't. As we can clearly see, even years later, he has the inability to express remorse, any remorse. He understands that his actions were wrong and that they had terrible consequences, Bunker said. While he can't undo them, he is determined to go forward once he's released from prison to do the right thing and to get the help he needs. And did you recall those words that he shouted out at the parole board? I'm sorry it happened. I can't take it back. It already happened. Low risk score, though. Give him a deal. He's a good guy. During a brief statement, Mitchell offered an apology. This was the apology, by the way, that he stated in court. I know my actions were not becoming of an adult. I am truly and heartfully sorry. That's what he says. Brown said Mitchell betrayed that trust and in doing so did harm to a very young child. Those are facts that are not in dispute, but also in my mind, not in dispute is that Mr. Mitchell's upbringing was horrific. Now, this is the judge talking. He's saying the facts of the case are they're not in dispute. But what wasn't horrific was his children, his upbringing, citing a confidential pre-sentence report detailing his background as unlike anything he's seen in nearly 20 years on the bench. And you know what? If you want to believe the story, if they brought proof of it or whatever, okay, so it was terrible. But that doesn't change the fact that you have a predator out there that has the inability to understand what he did is wrong. You can't risk more children. It's not an excuse. It's not in any way minimizing any of the pain and the horror of the victim went through. An offer from the judge meant Mitchell would receive an 18-year prison sentence to be suspended after he serves 8.5 years. Kelly noted that the victim's parents objected to an offer that she had made in prior plea discussions, calling Mitchell to serve 10 years behind bars. So the judge was a woman, I guess. So as you can see, the family did not accept it. They wanted more, but no, the courts don't care. I've heard the pain of everybody, and this is the judge speaking. This is the judge speaking, by the way, if you can believe it. I've heard the pain of everybody in the courtroom, and the offer the court made to resolve the matter is so that justice can be done, and also the parties can try to move on to the extent that they can and get on with their lives. Can you possibly believe a judge telling a family that stated on their record that they are not happy with the plea deal, that they should move on with their lives? I'm sorry, get on with their lives. There are no perfect solutions. This is the judge. How dare you? There are no perfect solutions, that she should get on with her life. This was a 13-year-old child. Why? It's not just us that are, it's not just, we're outraged. Get on with their life. And you might say, why are the victims not here? Why is there no statement? I believe that what we see happening in Connecticut is that there's very little time between notice and parole hearings. Families can be in shock. We've heard this over and over. It wrecks their life. They don't understand. They don't respond in time, or maybe they've moved and the message doesn't get to them in time. So there are so many reasons why we see victims not show up. The victim's family members present in court appeared unmoved. As Mitchell was led to the lockup following the proceeding, one of them clapped slowly, and another told Mitchell to rot in hell. And if you're going to believe that these family members are not going to show up at his parole hearing, and they don't need to show up. They can just write a letter to have a victim advocate speak on their behalf. I believe that the notification system is flawed. And we've seen this before. Now let's go over this score, which is a statewide thing. All the states agreed to collaborate on this score, this risk thing. It's a 10-point questionnaire that this man takes. And depending on the results, they say whether you're a low risk or a high risk. And as you saw, they consider him a low risk. A man who at his parole hearing says, well, the mother and I were having issues, and the young lady was very persistent. The 13-year-old child, she was very persistent. Oh, I'm sorry it happened. I can't take it back, but it already happened. It wasn't my intention. I was trying to work out the relationship with her mother, but it didn't work out. So, we had a relationship instead. He has a low risk score. So here it is. This is what the brilliant geniuses put together that run our Department of Corrections to protect us from the monsters, the cockroaches that crawl amongst us. So static 99R coding form. It's a 10-point questionnaire, right? And depending on the answers in your questionnaire, you get points or you lose points. And the goal is you want to have as few as points as possible. So, risk factor. According to the offender's age at the time, depending on how old you were, right? So this guy, how old was he? Was he 30? Was he 40? 40. He was 54 years old. Okay. So he was 54 years old at sentencing, maybe he was 52 or something when he did it. So because he was 40 to 59, his risk goes down. Okay, so he's -1 in the score, and we only need to watch Family Guy and the guy who likes to offer popsicles in the cellar to know that age doesn't popsicle. You know I'm trying to. Okay, but so he's now that's not so now he's less risk than someone who's 39 years old. Just want to point that out. All right, 2. Ever lived with? So have you ever lived with a lover for at least 2 years? So because his answer is yes, because he's living with the mother of the victim, he doesn't get a point. So now we're up to question 3, and he's still -1 on the risk score. Okay? Think about that. This is the PhDs that designed a test to decide if he is risk or not, and so far he is at negative. All right, let's continue this brilliant risk score. Index, non-sexual violence, any convictions. Because again, he had no prior history, which I don't know, maybe 90-something% of these people who commit these type of offenses don't. He's still now past question 3 at -1. Any prior non-sexual violence, any convictions? Again, the same thing. He's still at -1. He's now up to 5. Prior sexual offenses. He's still at 0. So he's at -1. Okay. And again, if you watch enough of these parole hearings, you know that most of them aren't caught a second time. They're all in here for their first time. And it's not because it's their first offense, it's because they're finally caught. So he's halfway through the test and he's a -1. And you know what's crazy, by the way, is that let's assume he was caught once before with doing this to a child. He would only get 1 point, so he'd be at a 0 by question 5. Okay. Now, prior sentencing dates. I mean, does he have other sentencing dates? No. Why that it was even a question in the test, I have no idea. So again, he's up to question 7, 0. Any convictions of non-contact sex offenses? No. So he's again at a 0. Any unrelated victims? No. So he's still at a 0. Any stranger victims? Yes. Okay. So I think because he wasn't married to her, she wasn't related. So any stranger? No. It's not a stranger to him. This is not a stranger. This is someone well known to him. I mean, technically, any unrelated victims, any stranger? I don't know. Again, so maybe this is a yes, number 8. So now he scores his first point. So he's at a 0. Any male victims? No, 0. So add up scores, individual risk factors. He, as we see, just went through a 0. -3 to 1 puts you at a low risk score, which means if he had checked the boxes on, for example, having a prior sexual offense, he would still be considered a low risk score. So there you have it. This is the nationwide 10-point questionnaire that is used by every state in the United States of America to determine the risk of someone like that we just saw. Make it make sense. We're just sheeple. We don't know anything. We don't have PhDs. Obviously, we don't understand the brilliance behind this 10-point questionnaire. Clearly, we have no clue. What do we know? And with that, I'll let you go.
I don't know exactly what to say. Other than, like I said, I take accountability for my actions. Not to defer from that, but the young lady was very persistent also. She the mother and I were having some issues. I'm sorry for what happened. I can't take it back. It's already happened.
That is 99R, the offender's overall score for sexual offense for recidivism falls within the low range.